A 24-year-old Australian woman is confronting numerous criminal charges this week after police claim she took officers on a high-speed chase across Sydney, hitting speeds reaching 170 kilometres per hour or 106 miles per hour, while darting through traffic for almost an hour before authorities finally brought her vehicle to a stop. The chase started at approximately 9:50 p.m. on July 24th when officers from the Campbelltown City Police Area Command tried stopping a white Toyota sedan reportedly being driven dangerously. Police allege the female motorist refused to stop, causing officers to launch a pursuit extending many miles across several of Sydney's outer suburbs. Authorities state the woman drove recklessly during the entire pursuit, reaching approximately 170 kilometres or 106 miles per hour while ignoring red lights, driving onto curbs and, at one stage, travelling along a pedestrian footpath, conduct police say placed dozens of people's lives in danger. As the chase progressed, additional units joined, including the New South Wales Police Raptor Squad, traffic and highway patrol officers, Polair and law enforcement personnel from throughout Sydney's southwest. More than 50 officers participated during the pursuit's busiest stage. Events eventually shifted after police effectively deployed road spikes along Wirroona Road in Berala. Although the woman kept trying to escape, the vehicle's flattened tyres forced slower driving, enabling police to surround her just before 11 p.m. The female motorist was taken from the vehicle without additional incident and placed under arrest, and perhaps most unexpectedly, roadside breath and drug screenings both returned negative. The 24-year-old was transported to Bankstown Police Station, where she faced charges including driving while her licence remained suspended, refusing to stop during a police pursuit while driving dangerously, exceeding the speed limit by over 45 kilometres per hour, and operating a vehicle recklessly in a manner dangerous to the public. Police in China say all 11 members of an alleged criminal organisation are now officially in custody this week, over 2 months after they reportedly carried out what has been described as mainland China's biggest ever gold robbery by value, a crime during which they escaped with $4 million worth of the valuable metal. The robbery occurred during the early morning hours of May 16th at an upscale gold store in Nanjing's Jiangning district. When staff arrived for work, they discovered 37 gold items, including gold bars and jewellery, had vanished. After reaching the location, investigators immediately noticed several unusual details. The store's doors were still locked. There was no evidence of forced entry at ground level, and the display cabinet keys appeared undisturbed. Instead, detectives found climbing marks beside a second-floor window, indicating the thieves had entered the premises from above. According to investigators, one man, later identified only by the surname Tong, climbed through the window at approximately 1 a.m. Police say Tong bypassed expensive watches and other luxury merchandise, moving directly toward the gold display cases before stuffing a backpack with over 27 kilograms of gold and escaping through the same route. While reviewing the investigation, detectives uncovered evidence indicating the robbery had been carefully prepared for weeks. Authorities say several members of the criminal organisation repeatedly visited the store during the months preceding the theft to examine the layout and monitor security arrangements. Police allege another suspect, surnamed Wang, coordinated the operation. According to investigators, Wang meticulously mapped the building's surveillance network before remotely shutting down nearly 80 security camera feeds on the night of the burglary and deleting store recordings before boarding a flight to Bangkok, Thailand, later that very day. Following the robbery, Tong allegedly left part of the stolen gold inside a vehicle organised by Wang before fleeing south using a ride-hailing vehicle. Investigators spent several days retracing his movements, inspecting more than 2,000 vehicles before identifying the car that collected him near an expressway around 5 a.m. The driver later informed police Tong appeared exceptionally anxious throughout the approximately 1,300-mile trip. When the journey concluded, he reportedly was unable to cover the fare exceeding 7,000 yuan, or roughly $1 US in cash. Instead, investigators say he broke off a piece from one of the stolen gold bars and gave it to the driver as compensation. Police ultimately concluded Tong was heading toward the China-Vietnam border, where investigators believe he planned to exit the country illegally. Border officials were immediately notified. At approximately 5:40 a.m. on May 18th, officers stopped a white sedan near a freight yard and discovered Tong concealed inside the back seat. Police recovered 875 kilos of the stolen gold from him, concealed inside his backpack. Meanwhile, Chinese authorities cooperated with international law enforcement agencies to locate Wang. Working alongside Thai police, investigators traced him to Bangkok, where he was arrested on May 23rd. He was returned to Nanjing through extradition on May 29th, and police recovered another 13.2 kilos of stolen gold from his home. Authorities say investigators worked continuously for weeks, tracking the remaining suspects across 8 provincial-level regions while simultaneously coordinating international operations. Ultimately, all 11 suspects were arrested and the complete cache of stolen gold was recovered. Even so, police described the organization as highly coordinated, explaining each member had a specifically assigned responsibility within the operation. And although their period as fugitives was brief, even authorities admitted the suspects successfully carried out the highest value gold theft ever recorded in mainland China. Officials in Peru say they were investigating a shocking case this week after an OnlyFans model was discovered dead under deeply suspicious circumstances inside a man's apartment. And when officers arrived, the man was quietly cooking breakfast only feet away from her body. The grim discovery occurred on July 23rd inside an apartment in the capital of Lima. According to investigators, the property's owner grew worried after entering her adult son's apartment and finding an unfamiliar woman lying lifeless on the floor. She immediately contacted police and reported discovering a dead stranger inside the residence. When officers arrived, they found 34-year-old Riza Jocelyn Martinez Copa dead inside the apartment. Police say her body displayed signs of violence and her mouth had been taped shut with heavy tape, while countless empty beer cans were scattered throughout the nearby area. What officers discovered afterward made the situation even more disturbing. Only a short distance from Riza's body, investigators found the apartment owner's adult son quietly cooking breakfast for himself inside the kitchen. Police immediately arrested the man, who is now regarded as the chief suspect in what authorities are investigating as a homicide. According to the building owner, her son and Riza had spent the previous night drinking together inside the apartment before she found the model's body the following morning. Investigators also reported locating what appeared to be illegal drugs during their preliminary search of the residence, although officials have not yet confirmed whether those substances played any part in Riza's death. Authorities are now awaiting autopsy findings and forensic examinations to establish exactly how she died and whether further criminal charges will be filed. Riza was widely recognized on social media under the name La Chocolatita, where she gained a following by sharing adult content through OnlyFans and uploading videos on TikTok. She had also worked as a model, promotional hostess, and appeared in music videos before attracting widespread media attention earlier this year, after becoming connected to Peruvian soccer player Pedro Aquino. The relationship triggered controversy after Aquino was accused of cheating on his wife with Riza, with reports alleging surveillance footage showed the athlete visiting her home during the early morning hours. The controversy ultimately resulted in the collapse of Aquino's marriage. Following reports of Riza's death, friends, supporters, and fellow content creators flooded social media with tributes, describing the 34-year-old as energetic, magnetic, and full of life. At the time of this recording, the suspect, who has not been publicly identified by name, remains in police custody while authorities continue investigating the circumstances surrounding Riza's death. Authorities in France say they were investigating a horrifying mass stabbing this week after 3 women were assaulted in broad daylight in northern Paris by a man carrying 2 kitchen knives. And according to reports, the situation could have been significantly worse without the intervention of several brave Good Samaritans. The frightening attack unfolded on July 27th near Porte de Clichy, close to the Paris Judicial Court. According to French authorities, the unidentified male suspect suddenly started attacking women walking through the area while brandishing large kitchen knives in both hands. The female victims, aged 19, 24 and 36, were all stabbed during the attack, and one of them was pregnant. Officials say the 24-year-old sustained a stab wound to her abdomen, while the 36-year-old was stabbed in the lower back. Both women suffered serious injuries but are expected to recover. The third victim received less severe injuries. Video captured at the scene shows the suspect, dressed in a cream-coloured tracksuit and holding the weapons, chasing pedestrians as terrified bystanders shouted warnings for people to flee. Fortunately, witnesses quickly recognised what was happening and several of them stepped in. One of those witnesses, 26-year-old Mohammed Ali Bouhadiar, told reporters that after seeing the suspect stab a woman in the back, he realised he had to act. After yelling for others to help stop the suspect, he and another Good Samaritan reportedly hurled a suitcase at the suspect, causing him to release the knives. That allowed several other members of the public to rush forward, knock the suspect off his feet, and hold him on the ground until assistance arrived. An off-duty police officer then placed the suspect into custody. Video recorded after the attack shows the suspect lying restrained on a pedestrian crossing with the two knives resting nearby. While being restrained, witnesses say the man repeatedly declared, quote, "It is Allah who commanded me." Despite this, officials have warned against reaching immediate conclusions regarding the motive. According to France's Interior Minister, one reason the suspect's identity has not yet been completely verified is that he was so incoherent at the time of the attack they couldn't even hold a conversation with him or ask basic questions. Following his arrest, he was transferred to a psychiatric unit. Nevertheless, French anti-terrorism prosecutors stated they are evaluating whether the case should be investigated as a terror attack. At the time of this recording, the suspect remains in police custody while investigators continue their investigation. Authorities in South Korea's North Gyeongsang province say a woman has died and at least 7 other people were injured this week after a 71-year-old man intentionally ignited an apartment management office and triggered an explosion that tore through the building in what investigators believe was a retaliatory attack. The incident occurred at approximately 8:30 a.m. on July 23rd at an apartment complex in the city of Gyeongsang. According to investigators, a woman in her 50s had visited the management office that morning after noticing surveillance cameras throughout the complex were no longer functioning. Her family said she intended to inform staff about the apparent security issue before heading back home for breakfast with her husband. Only moments after entering the office, however, a massive explosion erupted, followed by a rapidly spreading fire that consumed part of the building. 8 people, including the suspect, were injured in the blast. The woman suffered devastating burns and was rushed to a specialist burn center before later being transferred to a hospital in Seoul as her condition worsened. Despite doctors' greatest efforts, she died the following morning. Police have identified the suspect only by the surname Ryu, a 71-year-old resident of the apartment complex. Authorities say he also sustained severe burns during the explosion and remains hospitalized, preventing investigators from formally interviewing him. According to police, investigators recovered what is believed to be a flammable liquid inside the heavily damaged office, while surveillance footage, dash camera recordings, and witness statements are being examined to reconstruct precisely what occurred. Investigators are focusing on a long-standing dispute between the suspect and the apartment management office as the probable motive. Police say officers had answered 3 previous disturbance calls involving the suspect during the past year, including one only a day before the fire. Residents had also submitted multiple complaints accusing him of creating disruptions at the management office. Investigators now believe the attack may have been an act of retaliation against a resident representative who had recently lodged a criminal complaint against Ryu. Witnesses also told police that following the explosion, the suspect returned to his apartment, collected a knife, and roamed through the complex, shouting, quote, "I'll kill you all," before being stopped. Police are also investigating why the apartment complex's surveillance cameras were not functioning when the explosion occurred, and whether they had been intentionally disabled beforehand. Following the female victim's death, prosecutors elevated the charges against Ryu from arson causing injury to arson resulting in death and injury. Authorities have additionally carried out search warrants at the suspect's home and vehicle as they continue looking for evidence explaining the motive behind the attack. At the time of this recording, Ryu remains in hospital under police guard, and investigators say further charges could follow as the investigation continues. A bizarre and stomach-turning incident at a Thai clothing store nearly resulted in criminal charges this week after a woman walked into the business and shamelessly defecated inside one of its changing rooms, prompting the owner to issue a public ultimatum. The entire incident began on July 21st at the store located in the city of Rayong. According to one of the business's employees, a 49-year-old woman identified only as June, the female suspect arrived at approximately 3:20 p.m. in a dark blue sedan wearing a black t-shirt and white pants. June said the customer immediately requested to use the restroom after entering the store, and although staff directed her toward the shop's toilet, the woman instead grabbed a pair of shorts from a display rack and walked into one of the fitting rooms. After the customer exited the store, employees noticed a strong smell coming from the changing area. When June entered the fitting room the woman had used, she found human feces on the floor together with the woman's pants. June apparently managed to photograph the customer's license plate before she drove away, but she still had to clean the mess herself. The shop owner filed a police report and initially announced publicly that the woman would have until the following week to come forward and take responsibility before legal action was taken, using CCTV footage and the vehicle registration as evidence. It appears the strategy worked because, only 2 days later, the woman voluntarily came back to the store. Besides apologizing to staff, she handed over the equivalent of approximately $60 US to help cover cleaning costs. Regarding an explanation for her behavior, the woman apparently insisted she was neither drunk nor intoxicated, as many had originally believed. Instead, she claimed she was taking medication for depression and panic disorder, which she said could cause muscle weakness, dizziness, and loss of bowel and bladder control. Naturally, this still doesn't explain why she simply didn't use the restroom after being directed there in the first place. But apparently, that's the closest thing to an explanation we're likely going to receive. As for the clothing store and its employees, they appear to have handled the entire situation with good humor, although the store owner did say she still intends to completely replace the tile floor in the changing rooms following the incident. A massive and frightening search is now underway in Colombia this week, after a pregnant 21-year-old woman was discovered brutally murdered. With her unborn baby removed from her womb, investigators are now racing to determine whether the infant remains alive. Maria Camila Potosi, who was 8 months pregnant with a baby girl she intended to name Alaya, disappeared on July 16th after leaving what should have been a routine prenatal appointment in the city of Cali. Earlier that day, Maria had been helping care for an ill relative before attending her scheduled checkup at a local health center. Medical staff later confirmed the appointment had been entirely routine and that both the mother and her unborn baby appeared to be healthy. After leaving the clinic, however, Maria received a telephone call from a woman she had recently met through a local support program for expectant mothers. According to her family, Maria said the woman had invited her to collect baby gifts. CCTV footage recorded what became her final known movements, showing the 21-year-old climbing onto the back of a motorcycle operated by the woman before they rode away together. When Maria failed to return home, her family initially believed she had stopped to complete some errands, but as the hours passed without contact, concern rapidly became panic and she was reported missing. For nearly 2 weeks, Her family and police searched desperately for the expectant mother, but on July 27th, investigators made a horrifying discovery. Maria's body was discovered roughly 4 miles from her home, along the banks of the Melendez River, wrapped in sheets and concealed beneath a pile of blankets. When detectives examined the scene, they found she had been stabbed numerous times. Her hands and feet were bound. Investigators say there were signs she had been brutalized before her death, and the most horrifying discovery of all was that her unborn baby had been removed from her womb. There was no trace of the infant anywhere. Authorities have not been able to determine whether the baby was alive when removed, but investigators say locating the child has become their highest priority. Police believe several people may have participated in the kidnapping and killing. Representatives from the Cali Metropolitan Police say they believe 4 or more individuals may have taken part in the crime, while authorities continue concentrating on the woman seen riding the motorcycle with Maria. Although her name has not been disclosed, authorities appear to know who she is and have been questioning her because they also revealed her version of the day Maria disappeared keeps changing, and she remains a primary focus of the investigation. The city of Cali has now offered a reward equal to approximately $62,000 US for information leading to the arrest of those responsible and the recovery of the missing baby. Maria's mother, Alba Gomez, has issued her own emotional public appeal, saying the first question she asked investigators was whether her granddaughter had been found alongside her daughter's body. When she was told the baby was missing, she said it gave her hope the child might still be alive. Alba has pleaded with whoever has the infant to return her granddaughter, saying she only wants the little girl safely home. Family members say Maria had been excitedly preparing to become a first-time mother. A baby shower had been held for her only days before her murder, and she had proudly posted photos online while counting down the weeks until Alaya's expected birth in August. At the time of this recording, no arrests have been announced, and police are urging anyone with information to come forward immediately as the search for baby Alaya continues. People throughout Germany are grieving while also demanding explanations this week after a Berlin Pride celebration became the scene of an alleged Islamist extremist attack that claimed 1 life and injured nearly 3 dozen others, and it has since emerged that the suspect had an earlier history of radicalization and terrorism-related crimes. The attack unfolded during the evening of July 25th, as hundreds of thousands of people gathered in Berlin for Christopher Street Day, one of Europe's largest LGBTQ pride celebrations. Following the parade's conclusion, many participants remained in Tiergarten Park near the Brandenburg Gate for concerts and celebrations. However, at approximately 10 p.m., police received reports that a white van had driven into a crowd along a wooded pathway through the park, situated only a short distance from the main Pride festivities. Investigators say the vehicle hit numerous pedestrians before crashing into a tree. The horrifying violence continued moments later when the male driver allegedly exited the vehicle and started stabbing and slashing additional victims with a large bladed weapon that many reports identified as a machete. The attack left 1 woman dead and at least 29 other people wounded. Several victims sustained serious injuries, although officials later stated none of the survivors were believed to be in life-threatening condition. The annual Pride event was cancelled immediately. While performers were still on stage, organisers halted the festivities and urged the massive crowd to calmly exit the area. The word evacuation was projected across the main stage while emergency vehicles poured into the park. Police quickly located the rented white van believed to have been used during the attack, but by then the suspect had already escaped. Within hours, authorities identified the suspect as a man with Islamist extremist connections and widened the search across the entire city, deploying thousands of officers together with specialized tactical units. Police later identified the suspect as 21-year-old Abdul Balut, a German citizen of Lebanese descent. The manhunt concluded at approximately 6 p.m. the following day when officers located Balut at a garden complex in Berlin's Spandau district. Police say that as members of a specialised tactical unit approached him, Ballot suddenly charged toward them, carrying a knife. Officers opened fire, striking the 21-year-old. Despite emergency medical treatment at the scene, he was pronounced dead. This is where the situation becomes especially controversial because, according to prosecutors, Ballot had been known to authorities for years. Court records show he had previous convictions for assault and robbery before eventually becoming radicalised. Investigators say that in 2025, Ballot travelled through Turkey to Lebanon intending to join the Islamic State group in Syria. While there, he contacted individuals he believed were ISIS members before being arrested by Lebanese authorities and sentenced to 3 months in prison for inciting religious and sectarian conflict. After returning to Germany later that year, Ballot was arrested once more and placed in pre-trial detention. Only 2 months before the attack, he received a sentence of 1 year and 10 months in prison for preparing a serious act of violence endangering the state. However, because the case was prosecuted under Germany's juvenile justice system, the sentence was suspended. Prosecutors appealed that ruling, seeking a longer custodial sentence, but meanwhile, Ballot was released under the supervision of a probation officer. That decision has since triggered widespread debate and public outrage across Germany, with many demanding to know why a convicted extremist had been permitted to remain free when the attack occurred. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz condemned the attack as heinous, while Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt described the violence as a suspected Islamist terror attack and pledged stronger security measures, including expanded monitoring of individuals regarded as security threats. Meanwhile, members of Berlin's LGBTQ community returned to the Brandenburg Gate the following day to hold a vigil for the victims, placing flowers, candles, and rainbow flags while pledging the attack would not weaken the community's visibility or determination. Every case leaves questions behind. What's your verdict? If you enjoyed this investigation, like the video and subscribe to Crime Scene Files for more true crime stories. Tell me your theory and where you're watching from in the comments now. Click the next case on your screen, because the truth is never as simple as it seems.